The shameless charade put on by the ex-husband and his mother in Jack and Tien's luxurious living room was only the beginning of a chain of naked truths about to be stripped bare, much to the utter revulsion of the television audience. Armed with just 2 wild jackfruits hastily plucked from a thorn-covered hedge and a dozen scrawny free-range eggs bought dirt cheap from a corner of a poor market using patched-together pennies, these 2 individuals, consumed by greed and selfishness, had gleefully ridden together on an old, borrowed neighbor and Oppo's motorcycle. Their hearts fluttered with the anticipation of gaining access to the wealthy director to serve their own private interests. Standing before Jack and Tien, the mother-in-law, once notorious for her cruelty and her vicious torment of her daughter-in-law, instantly transformed into a gentle grandmother and an exemplary mother-in-law. Her voice was sweet, soft, and trembling with a profound hypocrisy, making it seem as though she were a mere victim of circumstance. She boasted endlessly and gestured dramatically about how remarkably generous her family had been to travel all that way just to welcome Lu back home, claiming they had taken such meticulous care of the pregnant woman that she lacked absolutely nothing in this world. She claimed Lu was given delicious food, peaceful sleep, and the finest newborn clothes and diapers so that the baby could be welcomed into luxury. Standing beside her, the weak-willed and selfish ex-husband unconditionally echoed his mother's words. He nodded repeatedly with a forced expression of distress, sighed heavily, and tried every possible way to prove that he had worried so much for his wife and child that his hair had turned gray and his face had grown gaunt. However, these 2 selfish souls could never have imagined that their filthy, smudged lies only deepened the utter contempt brewing inside Jack and Tien's hearts. Jack and Tien were the very people who had personally witnessed the bruised, ulcerated wounds on Li's flesh. They were the ones who had stepped in to rescue her from the dark mire of brutal physical abuse and venomous insults when she was kept under house arrest at her in-laws and Oppo's home. They knew all too well that the nature of the people standing before them was that of demons in human disguise. The affection they so loudly boasted about was nothing more than a cheap mask hiding boundless, cold-blooded cruelty designed to exploit the kindness of others for financial gain. The harsh reality was 100,000 times more painful. At the exact moment the perpetrators were enthusiastically claiming unearned credit to dig for gold, Lu, their poor daughter-in-law, was hiding out in a dilapidated, abandoned shack that stood entirely alone in a desolate, deserted field. The place had no electricity, not even a decent mat to lie down on, leaving her with nothing but the bone-chilling cold of the wind howling through the bamboo walls, utter loneliness, and the overwhelming fear that envelopes a single mother nearing her delivery date. Exhausted from long days of overworking and straining her broken body to scrape together a living, compounded by severe malnutrition from skipping meals, Lu became so dangerously weak that her blood pressure plummeted. Dizziness washed over her, and she collapsed unconscious onto the cold, moldy ground without a single soul knowing or caring. Fortunately for the tragic fate of this poor woman, Phuc, a kind-hearted young engineer who owed Lu a massive debt of gratitude for once retrieving a folder of crucial blueprints that saved his career, had always kept her wretched, pitiful circumstances close to his heart. On that very fateful day, guided by genuine gratitude and kindness, Phuc spent his own pocket money at a market grocery store to buy the highest quality rechargeable light bulb, a handheld flashlight, and a brand new woven mat. His intention was to bring them to the abandoned shack so Lu might suffer less from the hardships and darkness when night fell. The moment he stepped into the rusty, mold-scented shack, Phuc was paralyzed with shock to find Lu already unconscious. Her breathing was faint, her face completely pale and drained of blood, and her hands were clasped tightly over her pregnant belly, as if to shield the unborn child inside. Just as panic reached its peak, a police officer patrolling the area for security happened to pass by. Guided by professional sharpness and a humane, compassionate heart, the 2 men quickly decided to lift Lu up and carry her straight back to Phuc's warm home, bypassing the local clinic, which was far too distant and severely lacked medical equipment. A reputable private doctor, immediately summoned by Phuc, thoroughly checked her vital signs for a long while before letting out a sigh of relief. He announced that the fetal heartbeat was still beating normally with no immediate signs of danger, but Li's health was under a red alert and critically endangered. Had Phuc arrived even a fraction later? Or had she been left to endure the hunger, thirst, and biting cold out there any longer? the lives of both mother and child would have been impossible to save against the storm. After being injected with vitamins and hooked up to life-saving nutritional fluids, Lou rested on a soft mattress under a warm blanket, receiving the anxious, non-stop care of Phuc and his mother, a genuine, deeply compassionate countrywoman who loved humanity just as much as her own son did. In another development back at the villa, right after seeing off the ex-husband and his mother with forced promises, pretending to believe them just to politely send them away, Jack and Tien instantly felt a cold shiver run down their spines. Their sharp intuition told them that something profoundly false was unfolding behind their backs. With the level-headedness of a veteran businessman and a heart always oriented toward vulnerable lives, Jack did not believe a single word uttered by that cruel mother-in-law and Oppo's twisted mouth. He knew for an absolute certainty that Lou was in danger in some forgotten corner, and that there was no truth whatsoever to the shameless, money-hungry lies about her being brought back to the in-laws and Oppo's house for luxurious care. Without a moment's delay that very afternoon, Jack quietly leveraged his extensive local network, making continuous phone calls to investigate and verify across villages to find the true whereabouts of his poor adoptive younger sister. After several hours of searching filled with intense anxiety and bated breath, Jack was shocked to receive information from an acquaintance. He learned that a pregnant woman had just fainted in the middle of a barren field and was currently being given emergency medical care at the private residence of a young engineer named Phuc. Without a single hesitation, Jack immediately started his car, picked up Tien, and sped straight to Phuc's address at maximum speed in breathless anxiety. When the bedroom door swung open, what struck Jack and his wife was the sight of Lou lying frail on a small bed, and 4 needles embedded deep into the back of her gaunt, pale, bony hand. Her face vividly bore the hollow, ruined marks of days spent enduring ultimate hardship and hunger. Seeing this heartbreaking sight, Tien could no longer contain her emotions. She burst into tears, her face drenched, and rushed to the bedside to tightly grasp Lee's thin, ice-cold hand. Choking back her tears, she sobbed, and quote, "You have suffered so much, Lou. Why did you have to run away in such pain without coming to us? We were always ready to open our arms to protect and harbor you and your baby. So why did you resign yourself to suffering all alone like this?" End quote. Tien and Oppo's choked weeping inadvertently woke Lou from her long, heavy stupor. As she faintly opened her weak, exhausted eyes and saw her 2 former benefactors along with the engineer Phuc standing around her with eyes full of sorrow and worry, Lou felt an overwhelming surge of self-pity. Remembering all the bitterness and humiliation she had been forced to taste, she burst into tears, sobbing like a lost child had finally found her biological parents after a long stretch of being stranded amidst life's pitfalls. At this point, Phuc gently stepped closer, handed tissues to Tien, and began to recount the entire sequence of events clearly to Jack and his wife. He described how he had witnessed her living in extreme deprivation and misery inside the ruined shack, right up to the horrifying moment his heart skipped a beat upon finding her unconscious on the filthy, dust-covered ground. Listening to the story from beginning to end, a fire of fury erupted inside Jack fiercer than ever before. His hands clenched tightly into fists. He could not believe that there existed people in this world so cruel and wretched that they dared to abandon a pregnant woman on the verge of giving birth to the point of near death, only to turn around and shamelessly use her suffering and misfortune as a stepping stone and a tool to swindle money and pity from others. Jack walked over and clapped Phuc firmly on the shoulder as a gesture of deep appreciation and respect shared between decent, responsible men. He then turned to look straight into Lee's eyes with ironclad, unshakable resolve, asserting clearly, and quote, "Lou, you have absolutely no reason to be afraid, anxious, or to run away for even one more second. Last time, we believed their words and let you return to your in-laws because we thought the child, the sacred bloodline in your womb, would awaken whatever little humanity and conscience they had left. But we were dead wrong. They are demons in human skin, not human beings anymore. This time, we've decided to step forward and use our entire reputation, status, and wealth to protect you and your child to the very end. No one will ever bully you again." End quote. To instantly turn those steel words into practical action, the very next day, Jack proactively reached out and paid a substantial retainer fee to hire a top-tier lawyer in the city. a man of seasoned experience and illustrious fame in handling highly complex cases involving domestic violence, termination of parental rights, and marital disputes. This brilliant lawyer, alongside Jack, went directly to Phuc's house to meet Le. They proceeded to record her detailed testimony, collect medical injury certificates from previous bloody assaults, and gather invaluable evidence and eyewitness accounts from the neighborhood, proving that the ex-husband and Oppo's family had brutally abandoned and mistreated Le throughout her isolated pregnancy, pushing her to the brink of life and death. Sitting by the bedside, Jack tenderly held Lee's hand and explained that this lawyer would act as her legal representative to swiftly complete the unilateral divorce procedures from that weak, abusive husband. Furthermore, they would submit a petition straight to the Supreme People's Court requesting an emergency restraining order against the mother and son, completely severing all legal ties and personal relationships between her and that malicious family. Jack emphasized every single word. From now on, once the court rules, they will possess no legal standing or authority to come near her, nor any right to claim fatherhood or paternal grandparents and Oppo's rights over the child after birth. Should they dare show their faces to bother, harass, or threaten and blackmail her, the law will immediately intervene. An arrest warrant will be issued, throwing them into prison for harassment, defamation of character, and abuse of a pregnant woman. Looking at the thick, meticulously compiled legal folder prepared with such immense care, and backed by the powerful protection of Jack and Tien like an impenetrable, fortified wall, Lu felt as though a 1,000-ton boulder that had been crushing her chest and suffocating her for so long was entirely lifted. She understood that the dark, agonizing nightmare named her ex-in-laws had truly closed forever behind her, and a bright new life genuinely awaited her ahead. The days that followed were, for Lu, the most peaceful, serene, and blissful period she had ever known since learning the definition of a life so riddled with injustice. Following the sincere advice and thoughtful arrangements of Jack and his wife, Lu decided to temporarily stay at Phuc's small, but deeply shaded and love-filled home. This made it convenient for her to rebuild her health under the doctor's supervision, and ensured she had someone constantly by her side during the challenging final weeks of her pregnancy. Having gone through so many misfortunes and trials of fate, and having witnessed Lee's complete resilience and endurance alongside the deep trauma and crisscross scars in her soul, the heart of the young engineer named Phuc was utterly captivated. Without even realizing it, he had fallen for her. Phuc realized that he didn't just want to help a benefactor who had once picked up his blueprints. He genuinely yearned to become a sturdy shoulder and a great sheltering tree upon which this poor, deeply wounded woman could lean, entrusting the remainder of her life without ever having to fear the storm again. Phuc's love for Lu was not an aggressive, loud, superficial, or self-serving affection like that of her abusive ex-husband. Instead, it was subtle, attentive, quiet, and sincere, manifested through the smallest, most practical actions of a truly decent man. Every day, aside from his grueling hours at the sun-drenched and windy construction site, Phuc hastily turned down all social drinking offers from his friends, riding his motorcycle home as fast as possible to personally cook hot, nutrient-rich meals, constantly rotating the menu strictly according to the obstetrician's guidelines for a malnourished pregnant woman. He never shied away from or felt embarrassed by any chore, from washing clothes and cleaning rooms to personally visiting mother and baby shops to select the softest cotton newborn shirts, cloth diapers, and the highest quality milk bottles to prepare for the child about to be born into a welcoming embrace of love. Whenever late night fell, and he saw Lu tossing and turning, unable to sleep due to the back and hip pains that plagued the final stages of pregnancy, Phuc would gently sit beside her. Disregarding his own fatigue, he tenderly massaged her, speaking softly and encouraging her with cheerful stories and positive philosophies on life to help her forget her fears and self-consciousness regarding the imminent birth before her eyes. Day after day, Phuc's warmth, patience, and sincerity acted like a cool, sweet stream of water, slowly seeping deep inside to heal her bleeding emotional wounds and melting away the icy layers of doubt, fear, and low self-esteem in Lu and Oppo's once closed soul. Watching Phuc cherish and care for her down to the smallest detail, and especially seeing his pure, unconditional love and acceptance for the unborn child in her womb, a poor little soul that carried none of his blood and had no biological connection to him, Lu felt her nose sting. Tears of happiness rolled down her cheeks out of boundless gratitude to fate for allowing her to meet such an extraordinary man. She suddenly realized that after all the brutal storms of life, after the near-fatal beatings and bitter insults from those who acted in the name of her ex-husband's family, heaven had finally understood her pain and compensated her with true happiness, a peaceful, fulfilling harbor next to a man completely worthy of her heart. A new chapter of life filled with the light of justice, warm human kindness, and a true love untainted by material gain had finally and officially opened, welcoming the poor single mother to walk proudly into a bright, radiant, and completely happy future until the end of her days. To guarantee absolute safety for Lou against any prying eyes, Jack even went so far as to carefully install a security camera system around Phuc's house, and instructed the neighborhood security personnel to watch out for the appearance of any strangers showing suspicious behavior. This ensured that no matter how scheming the ex-husband and his mother were, they could find no loophole to approach or execute their dark designs. Jack's lawyer also sent an official written notice stamped with the law office and Oppo's red seal directly to the ex-husband's house, warning them of the severe legal violations they had committed against Lou. Upon receiving the letter, the two perpetrators were struck with terror, trembling as they realized they no longer possessed any standing or opportunity to exploit this poor daughter-in-law to climb social ladders or dig for gold ever again. Through days of scientific nourishment and care, Lee's complexion bloomed with color once more. Her radiant, happy smile, which had long vanished, returned to her lips, signaling a new life filled with hope, a small, happy family built on the foundation of mutual respect, understanding, and genuine love between herself, her soon-to-be-born baby, and Phuc, the kind engineer, was the true hero of her life. All the past bitterness and humiliation were now nothing but a distant memory, giving way to the very best things as the sweet fruits of goodness and kindness steadily ripened amidst the boundless blessings and joy of Jack, Tien, and all the deeply compassionate villages around them.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Nay thì mình mang tới một video tiếp theo về câu chuyện của Tử Tiên và Jack nha mọi người. Mọi người thân mến, thì Tử Tiên và Jack hiện tại đã biết được cái tình trạng của Lệ và cũng biết được bộ mặt thật của mẹ chồng cũng như là chồng của Lệ. Dù chồng và mẹ chồng của Lệ vẫn đóng tốt cái vai của mình khi mà diễn là một nạn nhân, là một người đã tốt hết sức rồi, nhưng mà Lệ vẫn bỏ đi. Nhưng mà thực ra trước đó Tử Tiên đã gặp Lệ thì cô ấy đã kể hết sự thật và cũng biết được và hai người đó chỉ giỏi đóng kịch như thế chứ không tốt như vậy. Và bây giờ hiện tại thì Lệ cũng đang bị suy nhược và đang được Phuc đưa về nhà và chăm sóc, cũng như đã nhờ bác sĩ đến khám. Bây giờ cái bụng của Lệ có bầu cũng đã rất là to rồi. Vậy thì liệu rằng Tử Tiên và Jack có thể giành lại được cái quyền tự do cho Lệ khi thuê luật sư để giúp Lệ đoạt lại tự do hay không, thì mời mọi người đón xem những phần tiếp theo nhé. Tạm biệt mọi người.